Okay. It's just because they changed the filters for some reason. So, okay. There we go. Now you're ready
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah. It's probably when you pass over the mic, that person needs to hit record or something, I would imagine.
Yeah, and and like I started noticing that as we were doing the regular dojos. I'm like, oh gosh, I have to remember, and I have a note right here so I don't forget on this
Mm-hmm.
laptop. So,
Yep. And I think Johnny and I also sent out the link to a couple people as
good.
well, from a couple different groups. So we'll see who trickles
Okay.
in, who doesn't.
Okay, good. All right, cool. Thank
I
you.
do. I see some faces I know. David, Brad, Gnome. Yeah. Adam. Here we go. I see some new faces on here. Whalebone, Cole. Nice to meet you guys. I see Amaret. Okay. Charlotta, Amy. Hey, what's up, guys?
Good to see you, Josh.
Yeah, nice to see you guys too. It's been a little while since I've seen some of those faces and heard the voices. So nice to see that. Hey, there's Mom. There we go. How you doing?
Good.
Well, we can talk a little bit about your crypto journey as well too. Although I don't want to put you on the spot. Maybe we'll get into some of that.
Okay.
Well, anyway, I'll kick things off here since we're right at 6:30 Central or 7:30 for probably most of you guys on Eastern Standard Time. But thanks for coming to the Crypto Dojo. I guess this is our second Crypto Dojo that we're hosting here. And for some of the new faces, basically kind of the way that we run this thing is usually we've got a host. James True is usually who's hosting these things. But tonight I'm going to host this Crypto Dojo and going to talk a little bit about my experience with crypto, how I got into it, how I learned, maybe resources that I try and use. I don't know. Some of you guys have varying levels of crypto experience. Some are probably more experienced than me, know more about it, maybe less so in other realms. And, I'll say off the bat right now that when it comes to crypto in general, it's such a wild west of stuff that's out there. So it's hard for any one person to honestly be like an expert in all things crypto. And I would immediately be leery of anybody who's like, yeah, I know the whole space. I got it all down pat, because there's just too much information flying around everywhere to really understand every single bit that's coming out and every single coin that's coming out and every single token. But this forum will be good to, share your experiences and, lean on people that might know one space better than you. And, maybe you've got an area of interest in NFTs or something of that nature. And we can talk more and more about that type of stuff as well. But to set the stage a little bit for, how I got into crypto, I started learning about Bitcoin, I don't know, maybe it was back in 2013 or 2014 or something like that. And, I've been in finance for a number of years, and I remember talking with some other finance buddies like, what is this stupid thing? And, making jokes about it. And it's like, yeah, this is definitely a scam, right? This is a scam. Okay. Definitely a scam. Okay. I thought so. And just really dismissive of it. And I think also being in the finance industry, you see things that are coming into the space there, and you're like, yeah, okay, that's just somebody who's trying to like take money. I get that. I get that game. I see what they're doing over there. And then maybe it was 2015 or 2016, a couple of years later, after Bitcoin had a nice rip up already. I think it already had touched like 10,000 at one point, and then fallen back, down. And it was like, okay, that bubble's kind of burst. And then it started to pick back up again in like 2015, 2016, and really ramped up in 2017. And I remember buying in 2016 and then 2017, and started to talk to those same finance guys. And it wasn't really that much of a joke anymore. The joke was pretty much on us about how, wow, we should have taken this thing a lot more seriously a lot sooner. And you fast forward to where we're at, and that's only, 4 years ago. I mean, that's not really that long ago in the grand scheme of things. And it has become monumental, right? So Bitcoin right now, which is just one of many different cryptocurrencies, but obviously the largest one that I'm pretty sure everybody here probably knows about, that's worth about $1 trillion roughly in market cap. So if you compare that to like some of the largest companies in the world, like an Apple or a Google or a Facebook, it's on the same scale and size of those types of companies. So that's pretty massive. However, you haven't missed out is kind of where I'm coming from for the rest of what I want to talk about, whether it's Bitcoin or other things as well, because when you put that in the context of, okay, compared to some of these large companies, wow, that's pretty good, $1 trillion. Sure, that sounds like a lot of money. And I would love to have $1 trillion, right? I could probably find some things to do with that and have some cool toys. But when you think about Bitcoin as kind of called the digital gold, well, how big is the gold market? Well, the gold market's over $11 trillion. So it's like 10 times as big as Bitcoin. So there's still some room to run there, right? People think it could eclipse gold or even take up some market share from there. But then also people are talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, like it says in the name, as a currency. So how big is the currency market, right? And what if it took a little bit of a share of the currency market? Well, that one's a little bit tough to calculate, and you'll get all kinds of interesting and retarded answers on how big the currency market is. And, you know, that's because things are rehypothecated, which just means they create more of that of thin air, basically, is the too long didn't read definition of what rehypothecation is. And you'll get numbers like quadrillions, hundreds of quadrillions worth of currencies. So, I mean, that is, I can't even do the math on that type of stuff. And I'm decent at math. It's large. It's a lot bigger than the space is now. So Bitcoin doesn't necessarily need to eat up that whole market. It doesn't even need to eat up 10% of that market to really go gangbusters from here, which is why you hear people throwing out insane figures like, oh, Bitcoin's going to be worth $1 million per Bitcoin one day or whatever. And I don't know, could it? Maybe. I'm not going to like go on and give you price predictions for the CryptoDojo today. I just want to set some, you know, groundwork as to what's going on with this thing and maybe where it's headed. And from a trading perspective, over the last couple of years, we've seen the trading pick up in a monumental way too. So for the whole crypto space now, not just Bitcoin, but for the whole crypto space, in 2019, see if I got my numbers right, I think it's 2019 was roughly $4 trillion traded back and forth in crypto land, which is pretty good. In 2020, that jumped to about $10 trillion trading back and forth on exchanges. And this year in 2021, and it's not quite done yet, we've seen that 10 trillion jump to over $60 trillion, right? So you can start to kind of get a little chart in your mind, and a hockey stick should be kind of, you know, the image that you're thinking of, right? That global warming hockey stick. Well, that's kind of what we're in right now. And when you start to think of the places that are adopting, you know, cryptocurrencies, I mean, you've got huge companies. So some of you have probably heard of MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor. He talks a lot about, you know, Bitcoin. They're a mid-cap company. They're kind of nobody, but they bought $500 million worth of Bitcoin in their treasury, and he tripled that in pretty short order, worth like $1.5 billion. Well, you can bet that, like, think about your neighbors, right? So I live in a cul-de-sac here. If I'm talking to my neighbor and I'm like, oh man, I took, you know, 50 grand and I put it in Bitcoin and I made it 150, you bet your ass he's going to go, how the hell do I buy Bitcoin, right? And he's going to start to think about, like, how do I do that? Well, the same principle applies to these guys that are CEOs of corporations. They're looking at each other and they're going, wait, this dummy Michael Saylor runs a D+ size company and he just tripled his corporate treasury in Bitcoin. Like, what am I doing? Why are we buying cash? What is this thing? And so I think there's just a lot of excitement that could happen in the next couple of years. Now, that's not to say that, gosh, I mean, Bitcoin's trading just below 50,000 right now. It could dip back down to 20,000, right? Sure. Why the heck not? But we'll kind of see how this roller coaster takes us. So for me, you know, I've invested in Bitcoin. There's different parts of the cryptocurrency landscape that you can think about. So I think the best analogy that I've heard that I like is, you know, if you've heard of Bitcoin, you've heard of Ethereum, probably, you maybe heard of some other different types of blockchains. The blockchain in general, and I'll just start out with some basic stuff. And some of you guys know this already, but for the benefit of all of us, the blockchain is just an online ledger system, right? It's like a record-keeping book. And Bitcoin is one of those record-keeping book systems. Ethereum is another one of those record keeping book systems. And then there's a couple others, but there really aren't too many of them, right? So this is important to understand is that, yeah, there's, I don't know, 10,000 of these tokens or whatever out there, but there's really only a couple record keeping books. And so the analogy that I think of is these are the nation states, right? You've got Bitcoin, let's call that the United States of America. You've got Ethereum, let's just call it China because they're two big superpowers, right? Those are two huge nation states. And inside of them, they've built up these infrastructure for an economy to grow. And things are building off of the Bitcoin blockchain. That nation is growing its GDP. And Ethereum is another nation state, and things are building inside of that economy and on top of it, and it's growing its GDP. There's some other ones as well, but there really aren't that many of the main nation state players. There's a couple others that are doing some really cool stuff. Avalanche, Solana, Cardano, Harmony, and I'm sure many others that I don't know as well. Some of these are starting to build into this NFT DeFi space, which is like, what the heck does that mean? You probably have heard of some of the NFT stuff. What's the famous one? I don't know, the Bored Apes or something like that. I don't even know all those things. There's like digital art, right? And they sell for an insane amount of money. I don't know how to put it. I like and I appreciate art. I don't buy art. So I'm probably not a good buyer of those types of NFTs, but there's other ones that are starting to have more utility, right? So I grew up playing video games. My mom knows that. And they're starting to do this blockchain gaming, which is like play to earn gaming. So if any of you were gamers, I mean, how cool would it have been as you're growing up to be like, man, I could play video games and I can get paid to do it? Well, people are starting to do that, right? With like League of Legends and all kinds of stuff that you see with some of the gaming things that are happening. But that's now happening on the blockchain as well, where you can actually get paid to like play blockchain games. And I bought some of these assets on the blockchain, and I'm like charting how much I'm making per day. I'm not making that much yet, but I've been following some other people that are making like $2,000 a month in passive income because they built up an ecosystem, you know, on like Axie Infinity, which is another one of these gaming networks. And so all of these things are starting to happen. Like this is that, I don't know, the metaverse or whatever you want to call it, that's starting to be built out. So there's a lot of different layers to cryptocurrencies, different ways to get access to them, and different things you can do with them, right? There's other beautiful aspects, and you know, there's some good and there's some bad, right? I mean, everyone's thinking, hey, the big tech overlords are coming, they're going to see everything, and I think that is coming. I think they're going to try and utilize and weaponize blockchain to see everything they possibly can. But there's also other things called privacy coins. There's decentralized networks. There's other blockchains, one that I'm involved in called Quartal, which is a true decentralized system that is another little nation state, although this one's kind of a tiny little island that's starting to populate. And some people are checking it out and they're going, hey, it's like the Bahamas or something, right? And they're like, wow, the ocean's pretty blue over there. That looks nice. And they've got some freedom. So there are these things that are starting to percolate through the system where, you know, if you know what you're doing and you start to educate yourself a little bit, maybe technology doesn't need to enslave you. Maybe there's ways that you can utilize it for your benefit too. So that was a bit of a long opening monologue into the CryptoDojo. But what I want to do is maybe take some hands, see where, you know, people have questions. Like I said at the beginning, I am not an expert on this. I know enough to be dangerous in a lot of different areas. I've been invested and involved in it, like I said, since maybe the last 5 or 6 years more heavily. But I'm looking to learn from you guys as much as maybe you can learn from me. We can take this in a lot of different avenues, talking about Bitcoin or whatever it might be that you guys are interested in. So I'll pause and see what questions there might be or who wants to take the mic. Okay, it looks like James. Go ahead.
Thanks, Josh. Cheers to all that. And welcome to everybody for being here. I wanted to throw out that Axis Infinity, which is just one of these companies. So they're like in Southeast Asia, and there's, I don't know, there's like 1.5 million, it could be 1,000, but I think it's like 1 million users are playing these games. And you should understand that these people aren't there. It's not like people are hanging out going, hey, what do you want to do? Let's just play a video game. No, that's not what's happening at all. These guys are legitimately getting up and mining resources using their phone inside a game, inside a program that you and I are calling a game. That's really what's going on, that you and I are calling that a game. But what's happening is that you're going in and you're staking territory, you're creating these conglomerates inside, and then it's paying you. That sort of takeover would only work in a population where people don't have jobs. There are 4.1 million people now out of a job. So if you really start to look at the purpose of what the vaccine, whether or not the vaccine has this purpose or not, actually is irregardless of this point, that there are 4.1 million people that are now out of a job, and that there's now a brand new technology that just happens to have been laid here where people are creating a resource living out of themselves by being online, by physically connecting to the metaverse, which is what every single big corporation has shifted into overnight, all at the same time, all in tandem, all in line with all these Bitcoin crashes. So I just want you to recognize the mechanics at work here, that it's actually not really just a game, that most of the world of this new economy, this new ether ocean, is going to need routes connected. It's, if you think of the old time telephone operators plugging their systems in, that really what Axis Infinity is really doing is it's building a currency network where you, the player, are going in and you're establishing routes for traffic, for points, for tokens, and that your ability to establish those routes well is being rewarded to you through this tokenized system. And that because you're looking at a brand new space that's never been created, literally the metaverse, they're looking for plumbers right now. They need plumbers and electricians. And Axis Infinity is showing you that it's not even accurate to call these things games. That what you're truly looking at is World of Warcraft times a billion trillion. It's, can you make the office environment fulfilling enough where people want to work there? That's literally what what I think we're looking at now. And as that predator clutches on to those 4.1 million people, them not having a job, them being afraid, them watching the crypto market even crash, is shaking them into a mindset of, I will simply run from this beast because I don't know what's happening. And so a lot of us are leaving bullets on the table precisely because of what happens every single time, which is a new technology is introduced. The good people want to slow down and scrutinize and think about it, which is healthy. And then the other people that just want to make a profit just get there first and they just grab it all. Electricity, fire, telegraphs, right? All these technologies. This is not only is it not different, it's all those things times 1,000. So just think about it in that scope. And I think you can start to see how there's no choice, but there's going to be certain chess pieces that are going to have to move in certain spaces that really have no choice what to do it. You're looking at that now with the Avalanche network, the Polygon network, all these different things that are coming up as a result of that are demand that is ahead of the plumbing that's been established. Ethereum is the plumbing network, but none of those giant tubes of water are practical to come into your house. You're going to need another tributary network to get that flow into your house. And you're going to want to get rid of some of that, and you're going to want to tap back into that system. And so that's what you're looking at with these second tier markets, which wouldn't exist had the plumbing for Ethereum first already been there. I don't, you there probably wouldn't even need to be those things, because there wouldn't be fees, there wouldn't be all these different things. So the innovations that you're seeing are completely necessary and part of the overall system that you're watching being built before your eyes. You're looking at neurons physically creating themselves and connecting to each other. And Axis Infinity is one of the companies that's selling that agency to the body, saying, hey, I got 1.5 million users over here. We can do something with this. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, James. Hey, before I move down to Brad, and I see you there, James brings up a good point about the games. They're not even games necessarily, right? So I'm going to share my screen and hopefully you guys can see this. Let me know if that comes up. Do you guys see kind of this funky looking map, little game?
Yeah,
network?
it came up. It's pretty clear.
Cool, cool. So this is DeFi Kingdoms. This is one of the games, quote unquote, that's built off the Harmony blockchain. So Harmony is built on top of the Ethereum blockchain. So that's kind of where I said before that Ethereum being the nation state, that plumbing network that you need, things are going to be built on top of it. Why do these other blockchains exist? Why does Harmony exist? Why did Axie built off of the Ethereum blockchain? Well, the gas fees is number one, which is just to say if you were going to run or drive your car on the Ethereum toll roads, when you got to the toll, you'd have to pay $1,000 to go through that toll. That doesn't sound too good. But if you run your car and you're running on the Harmony toll road, which is built on top of the Ethereum toll road, so think of it's like an elevated highway on top of a highway or something like that, it might only cost you a penny to go through that toll. So this game right here isn't even a game. I'm going to show you one quick thing here. So if you go into the marketplace, actually what this is a decentralized exchange where you can trade coins. So if you wanted to go in here, and Harmony 1 is one of the tokens that you can trade, but you can go in and I can trade it for Ethereum. I can trade it for Bitcoin. I can trade it for whatever I want. This is actually a decentralized exchange that's mocked up in a gamified scenario. And there's assets on this game that will help provide liquidity to this decentralized exchange. And that's actually how you get paid. In one of three ways is how you get paid in this game. But that's one, is you help provide liquidity to this exchange. And in doing so, they're going to reward you with the Jewel tokens. So I just want to show you like a quick snippet there. I'm not going to walk you through how to play and all that stuff right now. You want that? I don't know, just call me up and we'll spend 5 minutes. But these things, they're games, but they're not. They're essential plumbing, like James mentioned, to this network that's being grown. And they're just finding unique and creative ways to draw people in, attract them onto their network. And gaming is a great way to do it, especially when you can hop on. And if you were early adopter in something like this, the Jewel tokens were worth like 20 cents at one point. I didn't get in at 20 cents. I wish I did. They're worth $8, $9, almost $10 now, right? That's a pretty good return already. And James mentioned Axie Infinity. Well, their coin is worth $124. So you can see how there's some nice exponential growth going on inside some of these things as well. I think I saw there were some questions in chat. Oh, never mind. That's something else. All right, I'll hop over to you, Brad. I see you got your hand up.
All right. I'm still a crypto noob, I would say myself, but I've done a lot of reading in the last couple of weeks, and I got involved with that Quartal project that Josh mentioned, and that's pretty awesome. I learned a lot with that. I guess my main question is, I still really don't have a good handle on NFTs. I mean, I get the idea of that you're storing the image and, you know, that's your image and you bought the image or whatever, but isn't there more than that? I mean, I feel like there's more to it, but I'm just not quite seeing what the more is.
Yeah. Yes and no, right? I mean, and I'll maybe take a crack at it first, and then I'll open it up for other people to respond as well. But, you know, there's the digital art aspect where literally you're just digitizing something, and then you're selling it. But this is the way I think of it. It's like a Picasso. why does a Picasso have value? Well, Picasso was a great artist, right? And we, kind of assign all these attributes to him, and we say, wow, that's like a one of a kind Picasso. That's going to be worth so much money. Well, I'm sure at some point, in history long ago, Picasso was just another painter, and it didn't really cost that much money to buy his artwork. Like, was it always worth that much money? Probably not. And my mom probably knows more about this, art history type stuff than I would, but things have value because there's a brand behind them. Picasso is a brand, right? There's an ethos or an energy behind it as well. So, if I go and I create a Picasso style painting, and even if I'm a really good painter, and I suck, I'm not, but even if I'm a really good painter, I might not be able to sell that at my local flea market for more than like $25, because who am I, right? I'm nobody. Maybe somebody buys it and they put it up in their house and they go, wow, that's a beautiful painting, but it's probably not going to be worth $1 million ever, right? And the NFT space, especially the like digital art NFTs, are really the same way. There's got to be a brand, there's got to be some emphasis behind it. And so, there was a TikTok influencer or something like that. I don't know. I didn't watch her, but I heard the story from somebody else third hand. I thought it was kind of interesting. She's got a pretty good audience of people, and she's getting into the NFT space. And she decided that she was going to go and buy a diamond. And she bought like a $5,000 diamond, and she decided to make an NFT of it. So what did she do? She didn't just take a picture of the diamond and then just put it up. She did something unique to make a point. And so she went and she got a hammer, and she's banging on this diamond. She's trying to destroy it, but diamonds are pretty hard, she found out, so it didn't work so good. So she took it down to like a mechanic or something like that, who had an insane crank and crushed this thing into powder. And she took a video of the diamond being destroyed. And she took that video and she made it a one-of-a-kind NFT. And she sold that NFT for like $30,000. So she took $5,000 and made it 30. Now, some of her followers or whatever were making the point, well, hey, I couldn't just go around and do that. And that's the point I'm making now. It's like, yeah, you couldn't, because when you try and sell anything in this world, you need to market it. There needs to be a brand behind it. You can't just go out there, even if it's a great product, nobody knows about it, nobody cares. So to me, that's what a lot of the NFT digital art is. Some of the other NFTs that I mentioned, like in that game, DeFi Kingdoms, you can buy assets, which are NFTs that have utility in a game that can do things. So there's other levels of it as well. But that's my 2 cents. Maybe open floor to see if anybody else has some comments on NFTs and their experience. Please.
Hey, Mike here. I was on the last Crypto Dojo. Been in crypto since around 2017. I live it. I actually work full-time in a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. So I'm truly living the crypto life right now. Couple of things on NFTs too is right now the big sell is NFT art. Hey, I have an image, it's a JPEG, it's what have you. This is an infancy stage of the NFT. The NFT is going to become something much bigger. From the classic certificate-driven world, the credential-driven world, things like driver's licenses, birth certificates, all of the Babylonian documents we have to have, those will be becoming NFTs. I've seen a couple of use cases like invoices. So for instance, if your business generates invoices, you can generate the invoice. Tin Lake is making a platform for this, where you could basically bundle your invoices as NFTs and sell them. You can collateralize them and things like that using that NFT of the invoice as the collateral. I've seen engines for receipts being NFTs. A good one is back to the gaming side of it. Kart Racing League came out. It's kind of like Mario Kart mixed with Pokemon, right? In that game, the characters, the kart racers themselves are NFTs. And so what I have seen people doing is actually using the characters in the game as collateral and generating a return on their video game characters. No joke. And so for instance, to play the game, you have to have a character. If you can't afford to buy a full character, you have to pay to borrow one to play the game. And so I actually have friends that are staking their characters, so to speak, to generate a return from letting other people use it. Back to the song model, one interesting way I've seen this done is if you're an original artist, you don't want to go through a record label, for instance. You can generate a musical NFT. You can sell that NFT and you can actually bake a royalty model into that NFT. I've seen this done on OpenSea, for instance, where the original creator bakes a 4% royalty into the NFT. So I sell my song, I get my payment for it. When the user who purchased that song resells that song, I get a 4% royalty. When the second or third or fourth or fifth user that has that song sells it, I get a royalty. So you basically cut the record label middleman directly out of the equation if you're an artist. One really big one that I did want to bring up is I'm part of a project that's coming out. I'm not going to dox myself and all that, but long story short, we've done a couple NFT drops so far where the community can purchase them to get, well, they don't realize it, but they're getting onto a whitelist, right? And so when the token actually does drop, one of the ways we're distributing that token via airdrop is to everybody who took the time to go mint an NFT. Some of them were free, some you had to pay money to do, but the people who took the time and were invested in our project thus far and went and got an NFT, they don't realize it, but they're actually whitelisted, and they're going to be receiving a significant airdrop of our token when it hits the market, because since they're holding that NFT in their address, we've basically identified them back to an address, and we're thanking them for supporting the community with the token. So there's all kinds of things these tokens can become. I've also seen, to your point about art as well, the fungibility of non-fungible tokens, where there are pieces of art where you can buy them by a portion, but when you finally get to the 100%, so say it's broken into 50 pieces, you buy the 50 pieces of the NFT up, and once you have all 50, you can actually submit that to the people holding on to it, the art museum collector, what have you, and they'll actually ship you the original piece of art since you now hold the entire NFT. So this is literally, you're looking at the infancy of the NFT when you're looking at the flashing JPEG being sold for 5 ETH for some ridiculous reason. That's all I have. Thanks.
Mhm. Yep. Good stuff, Mike. Thank you. Open floor. Anybody else on NFTs? I saw Joanna was asking why. Maybe why would people want to own NFTs? Is that kind of what you were getting at? Oh, why the invoices?
Yeah, I just don't understand why you'd want to put invoices and receipts in there. Like, it's
You're adding
the
liquidity to.
blockchain.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Think of it like in the past, if I was a business, if I run a shoe store and I am dealing with vendors, for instance, and I have invoices where I pay them out for shipments or what have you, today that's a record in a database in my computer, and that's it, right? And maybe
Mhm.
they get a copy of it. Maybe we share a joint database, and that's it. For other enterprises, businesses, banking systems, what have you, if I can take those invoices, show they actually have a cash value, for instance, kind of like if you think of like a loan collector kind of thing, where you can sell an invoice, where if I make a sale with my business, I can sell that invoice to somebody else to go collect the payment for it at 80 cents on the dollar, and that way I no longer have to have a billing department, essentially, because I'm outsourcing my billing department by selling those invoices to somebody else. Or the example, like I was saying, where if I'm jittering these invoices previously, they're only between party A and party B. Now I can put them out there and I can collateralize them, and I can get loans based on them. I can use that as liquidity with somebody else who wants to hold those invoices because they need that collateral on their books. It just gives you flexibility in the financial system to collateralize or move value that previously would be illiquid. Does that make sense?
In a way, I need to find out a bit more about the financial side of it.
It's
But
al-
yeah, and
it's
it
also a-
will when I look
It's
into it.
also a permanent receipt, Joanne. So
Mhm.
if you have an NFT that you paid for an ice cream cone, that's a permanent record that you own title to that ice cream cone on the blockchain. And so it really does bloom the economy into everything that we've always valued. NFTs doesn't actually all of a sudden put value on something that didn't have value before. You'll notice that every single thing that NFT allows value to flow through is something that we already valued before. That you would value a receipt, you would buy an invoice from the client simply by taking it and paying it. You do that anyway. The NFT is simply a public ledger that no one can disagree with, that you actually do own that. So if you can think about it, think about all the witness and fame that could ever exist in the world, and now picture it tangibly touchable, tradable, titleable. It's as if you could take a flag and physically plant it in something that you've always found valuable and actually trade it with someone, a parking space. a membership to an exclusive golf club, the first early bird access to the new shoes that just dropped or whatever. All of these things that which we already do naturally are simply being tokenized and tradable is all. So it's it's simply ledgerizing and flagging everything that happened, that already happens in the prawn economy of what you do every day anyway.
And
Hi, I'm-
go
oh.
ahead, Whalebone. Go ahead.
I'm Whalebone. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm the half note crypto artist. I've been living a crypto life since 2014, and anytime people are talking about NFTs, I always just want to remind them how simple tokenization is. Just to think that tokenization is creating anything, literally anything. And anytime I hear about projects, I think, oh my God, I'm missing out. So if you're new to crypto and you're just feeling like, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to catch up? The key is just enjoying yourself, picking a coin in a community that inspires you, pick a game that you enjoy playing, and there are so many ways to live crypto. You may be making crypto art. You may be looking to store your business data for all eternity. But I just want to remind everyone that any transaction that you make on a blockchain is a token. There's a timestamp and an address, and it's viewable. An NFT is a more complex implementation of that process. It allows for lots of applications to run on top of it. But at the end of the day, just picture yourself for a fun little project, go all the way back to 2010 and grab some friends. Let's grab 10 friends and let's buy a car together. $10,000 car. You bring $1,000 to the pizza pool shop next week, we'll give you each 10 Bitcoins. Those 10 Bitcoins will represent your ownership of that car, your stake of that car. Who cares what the car is worth? It's 10 years later and you all have 10 Bitcoins in your pocket that you just for the fun of it were living crypto and decided to tokenize your pooling of a project. You can still do those types of simple things, just living crypto, tokenize everything. You can use an NFT, you can use an empty address. Just make a tweet. This address represents this. Put a picture, that helps.
Yeah, I think you're making a good point, Whalebone, which is if you want to learn something, it's good to do research, right? And read up on things, watch videos, but you're kind of poking at it from the outside. If you're really going to try and learn something, you got to just get your hands dirty. And if you want to learn about NFTs, go to OpenSea and upload a image and create an NFT. And you're like, now what? And then how does this work? Right? Like just get your hands dirty a little bit. And Jim makes a good point in the comments. And this is something I was going to touch on. He's saying that the Minnesota Vikings are making a commemorative NFT for the Steelers game. Well, as we're talking about tokenization and NFTs, think about how the financial markets have really grown over the last 100 years or so. In the beginning of the stock market, there was only a few companies that were like publicly traded stocks. Now everything is like publicly traded. Well, NFTs and tokenization is going to basically take that to the next logical conclusion, which is you can't buy the Minnesota Vikings right now. At least I don't think any of you can unless you're a multi-billionaire and we just don't know about it, which is awesome. But if you could buy a stake in the Minnesota Vikings and that was your favorite team, you might actually do that, right? Well, in the future, what's going to happen is that the Minnesota Vikings are going to tokenize and they're going to be able to raise money through their fan base and create more value for their franchise. and you can own a piece of the Minnesota Vikings. And if you have one share of them and it's worth whatever, $100, and the Minnesota Vikings win the Super Bowl, well, maybe that one share is now worth $1,000, right? And so you can actually appreciate and grow wealth with the things that you like and enjoy. And I think that's kind of what Whalebone's getting at. So whether it's, art for you or whatever it is, there's going to be different ways that you can get involved with cryptocurrency. But, I would say just start getting your hands dirty a little bit, and that's how you're going to learn it, right? And in the beginning, maybe it's just keeping it simple, right? Buy a little bit of Bitcoin. And the other thing is you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin, right? You can just buy a very small share of these things and just start to learn how these systems work. Adam, I see your hand up. Go ahead, man.
Cool. Hey, I'm Adam. My story in crypto so far is I bought my first little bit of Ethereum about a year ago, so I'm still quite new to the space. I'm very much of a hodler at this point. So I've just, I've probably been happy with the return I've gotten, especially on Ethereum over the past year. But besides that, one of my questions, something I was curious about is DeFi. And I'm wondering, one, how is that decentralized trust kind of aspect of it handled, where you're not going through a bank to basically loan other people money? And what are the mechanisms in place or lack of mechanisms in place, if that goes wrong? Maybe I'm conceptualizing DeFi in a narrow way, but I'm wondering if I go to a platform and I say, hey, I want to borrow 10 Ethereum from this pool and do something with it, how does that get executed in a smart contract? Or what if I don't have it by the time that comes around? So how does that work when that intermediary is taken away? And how does is there going to be repos? Is there going to be vigilante repo crypto groups going around, and kind of, because they're all, the way you're describing them as states, eventually, there's going to be that kind of friction in real life. So I'm curious about that. And also, besides that, I'm still blown away when I see some of these numbers on the returns people get for just doing yield farming and stuff. And I find that hard to believe how the math works out on that. And it's is it a bubble? Is it just because it's at the beginning? And is it sustainable as well? So those are my questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good questions. So I think you're getting at the innate fear that people have about moving off of the system that currently exists. And like I said before, this is kind of the Wild West, and people are absconding with people's money. So that's a very real thing, which is also why it's important, I think, for anybody who's just sort of getting involved in the space. I wouldn't suggest that the first thing you do, go to the most random obscure corner of the crypto sphere and go, I'm going to throw all my money at this thing I've never heard of before. Now, it may be awesome and it may make you a mega bajillionaire, but there are also aspects of, the digital ecosystem where this whole thing isn't regulated. It's beyond the regulatory system at the moment. And this is actually why I think that there will be regulation to some degree of it, and regulators will come in, but where people often say, well, isn't that going to destroy the whole framework? No, because think about the immense number of people that aren't touching this space because they don't understand it. It's difficult to get involved, and they're afraid that somebody's going to run away with their money. Well, once you start to bring in a regulator, like the US government or whoever it might be, that puts their stamp of safety and security, this is safe and effective, man, people are going to buy the heck out of it, aren't they? So I actually think that could be a potentially good thing. But to more specifically answer your questions on DeFi and how that type of stuff works, it's a trustless system, right? So it's all put up on the blockchain, and essentially let's take it back to its most basic level. So when a transaction gets put forward on the Bitcoin blockchain, there are things called nodes, which is basically just a really powerful computer that is verifying that that transaction came through. Now, there are thousands of these nodes that verify the ledger. And in doing so, you can't just go and make something up. So if Adam, if you all of a sudden put forward something into the ledger that was a bogus transaction and said, hey, actually, I've got 1,000 Bitcoin, guys, when you don't, well, that one piece of the ledger says you've got 1,000 Bitcoins, but the other 99.9% of those nodes or those miners, there's kind of synonymous names for them, they're all verifying the ledger and they're saying, no, I don't have that copy. So literally for somebody to go in and kind of break the system and hack it, they would need to hack every single one of those different nodes simultaneously that are verifying the ledger. So that's why you can kind of get outside this idea of like, we need this trusted third party, because a trusted third party is just a centralized entity. What is happening with DeFi and the blockchain is they're taking all of that away. And they're saying, we don't need anybody to verify this because we've got 1,000 different computers or 10,000 different computers that are all simultaneously verifying it. And unless somebody can hack that system instantaneously, it's going to be very difficult to do that. I don't know if I fully answered that question, Adam, but does that give you a little bit of a better sense to somewhat how that works?
Yeah, I think more I was looking at not the fear of getting hacked or like that aspect of it, but more the human element. Like if, you know, I don't know how like DeFi contracts work. Cause like I said, I'm assuming you go in and I go to a platform and I say, I need to borrow 10 Ethereum to start my business. I'm assuming it's like that kind of use case. And I don't know if it's algorithmically like accepted or if there's like a person who's going there and going, okay, I'll take that. Or if there's like people competing to like make these loans on a platform or something. And then like, you know,
I don't think DeFi is quite in the loan making business yet. I mean, certainly the DAO industry itself is built on the idea that we're going to, you know, revolutionize finance, and they are, but you're physically watching the real world of finance rebuilding itself from a baby. And you get to see right away from the very beginning how much fraud milk is being poured into that baby's mouth from the very beginning. And that at no point in time did that ever go away. And that we have this notion of having regulators that keep things fair. And it's the funniest, most hilarious thing I've ever heard, because that doesn't happen at all. But to really, really get to the heart of what you're saying, in my opinion, the heart of what you're saying, Adam, is that it's the ERC token that people are rallying around. It's the contract that's inside that white paper. It's not the group that's behind it. So Olympus DAO is probably the most popular DeFi platform right now. And maybe the reason why you could argue that people have so much confidence in their project is because they're staking their own pool of assets. Their white paper has built into the white paper itself that says, if you want to verify this transaction, then as soon as you recognize this Ethereum drop through this little hole, you have to immediately wrap it and turn it into a mem token or a mime token or all this other stuff. And then those are automatically wrapped into contracts that are then taken into another place, and then another contract is wrapped on top of that. So what I'm getting at is that there's really no human element involved in this one part of it. Okay, this contractual part of it. It's very much like you put a quarter in the vending machine, and if you hit E5, pretty much most of the time, whatever's in E5 is going to come out. But if you look at projects like Snow Crash or Snowbank or Snow Dog, these are just two examples of DAOs recently that got rug pulled. It wasn't the token that rug pulled. It was the trading. In other words, the fraud happened, but the fraud wasn't able to break into the ERC token. The fraud came when they said, hey, we're all of a sudden lost our trading contract with this one Trader Joe's. We can't sell sorry, we had this emergency in place, but there's just no one there to buy tokens except for us. So we're going to go ahead and buy all these back. The fraud is you're seeing the human fraud come in, but that fraud you would see when you're looking at the project itself. What is that money supposed to stake? Where is it supposed to go? And more importantly, is there a governance built into it? Most of these chains have a governance that's being built into what to do with all that money. So Olympus DAO maybe will have a trillion, I don't know how much they have, but let's say they have $1 trillion in their fund. That fund isn't just there. that there's a governance council that's built in because the people that wrote the token, the people that own the tokens get to vote and say, let's form a Star Wars high council where we all have to go to this planet and fight each other through this bureaucratic hellacious bullshit for the next 1,000 years. And everyone else is like, yeah, let's do that too. You're looking at the blockchain immortalized in an international, interplanetary way. It's the same thing, that it's the blockchain that's running the situation. It's the end result of what's happening with those tokens. So the corruption would come in through voting. The corruption would come in, as Josh said, through node hacking, we'll call it, but it's more important than that. It's node ownership, right? So Google, a long time ago, said, dude, we just want to own all the nodes where the internet is. We don't give a shit about anything else. We just want to own the massive bundle of fibers. We want to own that property. That's all. Because we think that's how we control the beast. So the fraud and the corruption that you see is going to be in the system, but the system itself, the actual ERC token exchanges themselves, I think you're going to find are pretty bulletproof. I'm not trying to say that there's never going to be a problem, but I think you're going to find that the problems that are caught are always going to be problems that are pretty much reversible. In other words, if certain transactions were considered illegal, but they were considered legal, each different blockchain has sort of a protocol in place for how that works, or they should, I should say. I don't want to speak for every blockchain. So you're seeing more control, less human corruptibility because of the mechanism, but also this Wild West notion that's also unleashed on it too, because it's so brand new that a lot of people are just walking into stuff and not really knowing what's going on or what's going to happen with it. So that's all I got.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Cole, I'm gonna. Oh, sorry, Webon, do you have a comment before we move on to Cole?
Just specifically to answer, how do we derive a value and what is DeFi? DeFi, a real simple way to understand it is it's like your bank giving you the reward buck at the end of the year. Eventually, it's real money, but you have to let it accrue there for the year. You get a certain amount. If you put a certain amount of money into your account and then you put a certain amount of money into this account, then we multiply this. So if you're getting bank rewards, just think of each project, each DeFi project. You've heard people mentioning DeFi projects. Each project is the bank. Each bank runs its contracts and then gives you incentive to put your money here or put your money there. And then you get paid typically in a third asset that could be scarce. And maybe that's the only asset that lets you buy lottery tokens in this particular economy. So just the finance becomes a game. If you're not into games, you don't have to. I think that game looked very cool. And you may just want to have something that tells you how much you made every day. You just look at it because that excites you. You can have that. You can have that for $50. You can have it for $10. You can put as much as you want in and you just get these returns. And you have to do your own research. You have to look at issuance. How many coins exist? Just because this coin hits a penny doesn't mean it's even realistically fathomably possible for this coin to hit a penny. Even though, oh, that's a penny, that's a penny. It's not much more complex than, well, how many units are there totally?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Solid points. Solid points. Cole, I see you've got your hand up for a while. Thank you. What's on your mind?
I was just curious about Adam's question as well, and just kind of a like stapling another question on top of that. It was like, what kind of systems would people put in place not to necessarily get, like, to use his example again, to borrow 10 Ethereum, not to get that Ethereum back, but to stop like that fraudster from like frauding someone again? Like, is there any sort of way to put the message out there that, hey, this person never paid back the 10 Ethereum, and not a like governing agency to say, oh, he has to give that 10 Ethereum back, but just to say, yeah, don't trust this account with Ethereum?
I don't know if they would even look at that as fraud, Cole. What I mean is that in a way, you're agreeing that we're going to build a loan vending machine, and we're going to put it on the corner of Fifth Avenue, right? And people are going to come up to that, and they're going to use this vending machine. And we need to make this vending machine to where no matter what, we're at least paying for the coffee that comes out of the machine. We have to. So we know that 2 out of every 10 people are not going to fucking pay for their coffee because they're assholes. So we're going to make sure that the price of those 2 assholes is always built into every cup of coffee. And that's how loans work. That's how high interest loans work right now. So that part of it isn't necessarily even the blockchain. I think what you're looking at there more is like sadly, the social credit system coming out. I really want to point out that one beautiful thing about blockchain, which I know will end up being a double-edged sword, I totally get it. But one beautiful thing about blockchain is that there is no reversing it. And I say that because most of the currencies that are trying to establish themselves, Solana is one, for example, their biggest fear is that if we have all of our nodes in one person's bag, that they could start reversing transactions, that the government could have a subpoena in this certain jurisdiction that would say and scare enough people that own nodes in that jurisdiction, right? That they would have to fulfill a court order, then they would simply do that. So Solana is working as hard as they can to build a system that just can't do that, where there's no physical way for a centralized authority to backlog that contract. I'm saying this because it creates something really interesting, which is that fraud is victimhood. And I know that sounds kind of like crazy, but when you look at truly what nature is about, if you stick your head in this hole, something's going to happen to you. You can call that fraud, but really at the end of the day, you stuck your head in the wrong hole and something happened, which is nature. There's not a court in nature like that eagle committed fraud, or that scorpion can't believe it. He told me he wasn't going to do it and he did it. One thing that's interesting with blockchain is it kind of takes away all that stuff because the contract itself becomes almost like a traffic light. What I mean is you don't find court cases where you're interviewing the traffic light and you're like, you fucking turned yellow too early that day. You know you did. You were drunk and you're washed up old washing machine who thinks you're a traffic light. None of that exists because it's on this blockchain. It's simply because it becomes something that happened. And the only way it happened was person made a choice to either invest in the vending machine that gives out loans to people, or made a choice to try and steal money from the vending machine that someone else put on the street. Both those things are naturally going to happen, but they're going to each have their own blockchain to deal with the consequences of that from either side. So it's not really fraud. It's more of like chain effect, if that makes sense. Just cause effect kind of a thing.
Okay, I think that kind of answers my question. Like I definitely did take into consideration just the putting into the cost of doing business of the, like you said, 2 in 10 people just won't pay. So that really does help me kind of get a grasp of it. Thank you.
Well, sorry to jump in again, but I can't stress this enough that a court having the ability to say, no, you have to give that money back to Bob because Bob convinced us that you cheated him is really, really taking the transaction, the natural world, and changing it dramatically by saying, well, all these things can exist as long as you can agree, as long as you can convince the law to be on your side about a certain topic. And we as kind of not people that can afford to buy the Minnesota Vikings, we don't necessarily see that all the time when we look at law about how these laws are actually formulated, that the law itself, in my opinion, is actually one of the worst things against the little guy, just precisely because of these kind of things that we just consider the law almost like a belief engine that you can call in and say, well, look, I got the law on my side, so you pretty much have to believe what I have to believe. Blockchain really does take that away. I'm sorry, a clean, decentralized blockchain would really take that away. And that's why so many coins are literally threatening their own culture. Monero is one, literally hurting themselves because it's so important to them that they maintain some sort of decentralized scheme. That's more important to them than even the health of their ecosystem.
That makes sense. And like, so my question wasn't necessarily about like what could reverse that effect, because I don't like, kind of like you said, that's the governance, that's the courts right there. And I don't necessarily want that. I was just saying like what systems are in place, and you did answer it with the just doing it as a cost of business analogy. But like what systems are in place to just tell people that, like, let's say you were the person who borrowed the 10 Ethereum, just telling people, hey, James True didn't pay back the 10 Ethereum, not so the Ethereum would back up in my account, but so you can borrow 10 Ethereum from Josh or from Melanie. I was just wondering what systems would be in place for that, if any.
So Cole, when we get to the day that everything is out in daylight and it's on the blockchain, then that's going to be solved in some way, right? And I think that's the world that some people want to take us to, which is that there is no more privacy. Privacy and freedom is a thing of the past because everything is out in the open. So if I took your 10 Ethereum, like James said before, my social credit score is going to go in the crapper. So I'm not going to be able to, walk into Home Depot and put down my card and say, hey, I'm going to go buy this lumber with my Ethereum or something like that. And they're going to go, well, we see that you stole Cole's 10 Ethereum here. So this lumber that usually costs a quarter of Ethereum, we're going to charge you 10 for the lumber. So there you go, buddy. So those things will equalize themselves. And that's literally how central bankers talk about wanting to run the world. And I won't get into all that because that's more of a finance conversation. But this is what they're planning on, is that it's no privacy, no freedom. And so all of that is solvable, right? And you can look at that as good or bad. But I see a couple hands up here. Brad, go ahead, my friend.
I just wanted to talk about what Joanna asked about the node thing.
Yeah.
So I got involved with this Coral project that Josh has talked about before on the dojo. And it's an easy way to just really see how the system works and get into it without any money, which is a beautiful thing. The guy that's running the project, is his vision for what he could possibly create is pretty awesome too. And the community is really great. They're all about sovereignty and privacy. But it's really simple. You sign up, you don't have to pay any money. And basically what you do is you install this software on your computer, which allows your computer to connect to their network. And then you're a node on the system. And then your reward is you get to mint their coin, but that coin is automatically generated on a time basis. And so just by keeping your computer on with the software running, and it can run on a Raspberry Pi. So like I run it on my computer and I do everything that I normally do on my computer, and it doesn't affect, my ability to mint or keep the node up. And it's about participation and, getting more people involved. And the next phase that they have planned is going to be ridiculous. They're going to put their own database network in, and then basically anything that's on the internet that you see, you could put on to this network, and it would be its own decentralized network. I can't really do it justice to explain it because I'm still a little bit new with it, but you were talking about a node, and that would be a good way that you could just get your feet wet and take no risk for yourself and possibly be part of something that's, I think, could be really awesome in the end.
Yeah, I actually think you did a pretty good job explaining it. And yes, I think that would be an easy way to become a node, because frankly, to become like a Bitcoin node or something, it's just not possible. It's too expensive and you're going to lose a lot of money. You'll learn for sure, but you're going to lose tens of thousands of dollars doing it. So Brad's way is probably a better way.
It's really loud too. It's so loud.
Yeah. Yeah. You need like a server farm basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mike, I see you got your hand up there as well. And then I see there's a couple questions. We'll get to those in the chat too, but go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't want to jump in over the top. I know folks were coming in, but some more thoughts on the loans pieces. So generally, a lot of protocols out there won't loan you anything without collateral, right? And that's why the whole NFT invoices piece and things like that matters. Is for instance, in a lot of DeFi platforms, you'll have to put up X amount of token A, and they'll loan you up to Y amount of token B. So that way the protocol kind of hedges its own bet that you have to let them hold something. So in a future where your car is an NFT and it has whatever ever assigned value to it, you could actually put your car's NFT up as collateral to receive a 10 ETH loan to go conduct your business. And then obviously, if you don't pay back the 10 ETH at some pre-agreed upon point in the contract's execution, then that NFT transfers in ownership. So that's one way to look at it. Loaning is kind of a different system in DeFi, though. There's an interesting beast here that adds an access to a prior trading method that wasn't available in the non-bank civilian world. And so here's a good example. James brought up the Olympus DAO, the OHM token. The OHM token, if you stake that on their platform currently, I think it's paying between 6 and 7,000% APY. I haven't looked at it in the last couple of days. But so when you buy OHM on an open exchange and you stake it on their platform, they're generating a return based upon your liquidity, and they're paying you for your liquidity that you've given to them, right? One of the things that's interesting that loans allow for here is I deposit the OHM token into the Olympus protocol. In return, it gives me like kind of a coat tag. Like if you go to a restaurant and you hand them your coat, they give you a tag. They give you SOHM, which is known as staked OHM. So it's another token. So I hand them my OHM. They hand me staked OHM to show me that I am holding a token within their platform. Now, some platforms out there like Rary will allow you to then deposit that staked OHM. So keeping in mind, your OHM is locked in the OHM protocol, generating a return. I can use that staked OHM, which is, I can turn that back in for OHM later, but I can let Rary hold the staked OHM token, and they will allow that to be collateral to then give me a loan that I can go purchase more OHM with. So now keep in mind, at this point, I have OHM locked up in the OHM protocol, earning 7,000% APY. They've handed me the SOHM token. I've now locked up the SOHM token as collateral, and I've now gone and purchased more OHM with that collateralization of the SOHM, and I can go back and I can stuff that back in the OHM protocol and earn 7,000% APY on that as well. So basically, if your trading stack is 5 OHM, you lock it up, you get 5 SOHM, you can turn that 5 SOHM into another 2 or 3 OHM, which then you can lock up, and now you've got 8 OHM staked when you only own 5 to begin with. Right? So now you're earning APY on all of those assets, even though you only own a smaller portion of them. You're basically leveraging your own money to take a loan to get more money to also earn an interest on that. There is risk involved in this, though, because of the price of the token, the price of your collateral drops, they'll start liquidating some of your holdings to pay themselves back. Kind of the whole safety mechanism is baked into the protocol to make sure they're not losing money. But I know many people who are doing this to a ridiculous level and are generating returns that it's absolutely degenerate how much money they're making. So things you can do in DeFi that you could not do in classic finance.
Yeah. Mike, you're making some great points. And, if for some of you guys, some of that OHM, SOHM, all that stuff is a little bit beyond you, trust me, you'll get there. If you pay attention enough, you'll get there, and it won't be like another language. But the easiest way to think of this is you're giving the bank your money, and instead of them paying you like 0.02% APR or something stupid that they give you on your savings account, they're going to give you 6,000% APR. Or like in that game example that I showed you and flashed up on the screen there, you can stake lots of different coins, and some of them are 70% APR. Some of them are 700%. And the way to think about it, it's not an exact one-to-one, but the higher the APR you're getting, it's probably a riskier proposition, right? But if you're a believer in their technology or their ecosystem that they're building, that's a way that you can get invested in what they're doing, and you can get paid to wait while that network grows. So that's a way of saying, hey, I like what Capital One Bank is doing. I think they're starting to become like a really big institution. They're going to eat into Bank of America's share right now. I'm going to give Capital One 100 grand and let it sit in a savings account. And you know what? They're going to pay me 7% on my money, right? Like that's a more simplified example of what we're talking about. And then Capital One takes your 100K and they go deploy it to make their business better. That's really all that we're talking about. It's just, it sounds more complicated when you start to get in all these coins and things that you've never heard of before, but it's just giving an institution your money that's doing something with it. And if you like the project, they'll pay you. And sometimes they'll pay you really good.
Tokens are derivatives. That's all.
Mhm.
Entire world, right? This is how the entire world was built. And if you look at the actual, man, I wish I had these numbers, but if you actually look at, when you break apart the economy and you look at how much of it is just like pure compressed air, it's like more than most of the economy is is that. It's like compressed promises of promises built on top of promises that these ant colony is surviving in the water simply by climbing on top of each other over and over and over again as it runs down. Yeah, bread and circuses all the way. It's all technology of belief. It's all technology of belief. And just like when you're buying a stock, you're buying NFT in Tesla, right? It's the same thing, except for now it's just everyone gets to do it. And the value of your witness is now tradable. This is kind of the biggie. If you spent all summer in Axis Infinity, you've actually built equity in that game. Your MetaMask has equity. I think it might help to really understand this when you picture that you're not actually going to be able to visit a website unless you have, I'm just going to use the word MetaMask wallet right now, but it doesn't have to be that one. But unless you have an Ethereum wallet, it doesn't have to be Ethereum even, but unless you have an Ethereum wallet hooked up to your browser, you're not even going to be able to walk into a website. And that solves all your social contract stuff. That solves all of your login stuff. And more importantly, it makes your entire portfolio tangible. Even things as obscure as the month you spent playing Axis Infinity last summer, you will find will be a commodity that you'll have for the rest of your life. And it's be a matter of what you keep up with. That's what I mean by this is really about connecting networks. That the people that are going to be doing well are going to be the people that have learned how to route their witness into certain tokens. Right now they're tokens, but into certain tokens or NFTs, and then learning how to leverage them as they go into the future. It's a lot like Amway. It's a lot like any professional salesperson. I'm not trying to say those, but what I mean is like that, or it's like any professional salesperson that's just, their commodity is who do I know? Who do I know and how well do I know them? That's going to be my most valuable commodity to a salesman. It's very much just like that. It's just hard to picture right now because it's all the energy's there. It just hasn't been tokenized yet. So you're just watching that slowly happen.
You know, I saw in the chat, somebody was asking, I think it was Randy, about how to get started. So we're going in a lot of directions. I think that's a great question to maybe come back to the ground a little bit and say, okay, this sounds interesting. What do I do to just begin? Mom, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you want to open up your mic? How did I get you started on just how to begin in getting involved in crypto?
Yeah, well, I'm just a little player here. But basically, Josh got me started by setting up an account using Coinbase as my app and just contributing a little bit on a weekly basis and just watching it grow. And it gave me a chance to kind of watch it and see what happens and try to learn as it was going up and down without taking a big risk. And I was drawing it out of just a savings account, which wasn't earning me anything anyway. So this way I've earned a lot more in a short period of time. And then as the market, you know, with the Bitcoin went down, Josh would often let me know and I would say it's a good time to add another piece in. And so then I'd add a little bit more. I'm very cautious, but I'm still growing and it's still there. So it was a way, and I'm still learning obviously, but I don't play a big market. I just keep it within the Bitcoin right now.
And was it relatively easy to set up the app on your phone?
Oh yeah, it's very easy to set it up and hook it into my savings account.
Right. So thanks, Mom. I appreciate that. Sorry for putting you on the spot there.
Right.
But
Yeah, thanks.
you know, really that's the beauty of it is it's just a very simple thing. You can download an app, connect it to your bank, start putting like, you know, X amount of dollars per week and just buy it. Just start buying a little bit, you know, buy Bitcoin, buy Ethereum. Those are the main two. You know, are there better ones that I've got cooking in my accounts that, you know, I'm more hyped up on? Sure. But I still own Bitcoin. I still own Ethereum, right? Those would be the two majors that I would start with if I was just getting into it. Go ahead, Randy. did you have something you want to say on top of that?
No, that's very helpful. And I guess as you learn, you get into the other stuff that you were talking about. As you get more understanding the whole thing, you can maybe get into something with a higher risk reward payoff, right?
Sure. But keep in mind, I was talking to a good buddy of mine who, he's a smart guy. He owns his own business. He's done very well for himself, and he doesn't own any Bitcoin, no Ethereum. And he was like, Josh, he's like, can I just give you money and you can just put it in something for me? And I just laughed at him. And I was like, no, you idiot. I was like, you got to just go do it on your own, man. I'm not going to do it for you. And we started having this conversation because he's a gold guy. One of the businesses, or the business that he runs is precious metals. Essentially, he does other stuff too, but largely precious metals. And so he's big into gold and silver. And he's like, oh man, the fiat system is, it's retarded. The whole thing's going to implode. And I was like, I agree with you, Lou. I was like, yeah, I know. I was like, that's exactly why I own Bitcoin. Right. And he's like, yeah, but what if they do this? And what if they do that? And I said, like, all right, stop. I'm 37 years old. So he's roughly my age. Right. And I was like, listen, you don't own bonds, right? And he's like, no. I was like, why would I own bonds? Those are stupid. Okay, great. He's like, so you aren't going to touch this money for like what, 20 years, 30 years? Think of it like your IRA money. Okay. So what do you do with that type of money? He's like, well, I invest in the stock market, right? Like I take risk with it because I want to get a good risk reward return. Well, if you think about, and I don't want to go too far down in the finance land, but just simply, obviously inflation is picking up, right? On a very simple, way to think about it. We print more money. Things are going to cost more. Dollars go down in value. So what do? You need to invest in something that's going to keep pace or do better than inflation. So I was telling him, this is just a component of your portfolio. Like you buy stocks, right? You don't buy bonds because they're not going to keep up with inflation over time. Yeah, I agree. Okay, great. So why do you buy stocks? Because they're probably going to give you the most return. I don't care if they go down 30% a year because I know they'll come back. Well, Bitcoin is the asset with the highest risk return. And there's other, coins you can get into that may be even more substantial from there. But Bitcoin in and of itself, even if you never went beyond just Bitcoin, gosh, you could look at something that could be 100 times better for you than owning the stock market. And you're seeing all of these smart financial people, hedge fund guys, et cetera, that are getting out of their stock positions. And these guys don't care what they buy. They buy farmland, they buy commodities, they'll buy the yen, they buy all kinds of different wacky things that you're like, what are they doing? They're just looking for the best return and the best risk return potential. And they're getting into Bitcoin. Actually, they're more so getting into Ethereum right now. But they're looking at this ecosystem and they see the way things are built. Inflation's taking hold. There's fiat debasement across the entire world that's just going to continue to accelerate. And they're going, I'm an idiot if I don't own a little bit of it. So that's why I'm saying, hey, just keep it simple. Just start out, just buy a little bit of Bitcoin, buy a little Ethereum. And I don't get paid anything, right? I'm not like I'm not like shilling Bitcoin. Like, what do I make? What do I care? I don't care. Do what you want, man. Don't buy anything, whatever. It doesn't matter to me, but that's the way that I would do it. Shoot, I did it for my own mother. So there you go. Anyhow, so yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Well, Bone, actually, I see Catherine, you put your hand up. Let's go to you. Go ahead.
Okay, I did. Hi. I actually, I put it up a few times, but then I realized I was clapping instead of putting my hand up. But anyway, I'm a total newbie. And so I just wanted to share, I started out a few years ago, I think it was 2017, and I set up a Coinbase account, like your mom did, and I connected my bank account and I bought some portion of Bitcoin, and a little bit of Ethereum and Litecoin, and I, my nephew's right into Cardano, so I, got a little bit of that recently. And so then the next step, Josh, I messaged you about this because I'm wanting to do this, is to get out of Coinbase and move into like my own wallet, with my own keys. So I got this little Ledger Nano S that's been sitting here for a little while. So that's kind of the next step for me, is to kind of move everything over. So I'm a little bit nervous about doing that, but And then the other thing is I got involved in the Caudal project as well. And then this is my little pie that's running.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, it's all very fascinating, and thank you for hosting this, Josh and Melanie, for organizing it, and everyone's input. Yeah, I thought I was starting to learn a bit about it, but then I hear you guys talk and I'm like, oh. So anyway, it's good. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I mean, thank you to, there's so much more knowledge beyond me. I mean, I can guarantee you that Whalebone and Mike know way more than I could ever learn about this space. So I'm just the one probably talking the most, but there's so much to learn from each other here. So this is a great thing. Real quick, since you mentioned it, Catherine, as you start to turn a little bit into something more substantial, and I've said this to my friends that started to get more and more involved and started to have a little bit more of their nest egg, so to speak, in cryptocurrencies, that's where you do want to start becoming your own bank and taking it out of an exchange, right? And you want to take it off of Coinbase, you want to take it off of these other centralized platforms, and you do want to hold it in your own private wallet. You can also do paper wallets, which is called cold storage, which is something as well. Maybe we won't get into quite so much of that right now, but these are things just to be mindful of. And if you're starting to get to the place, any of you, if you're starting to get to a place where you feel like, hey, let's just say you start with $100 and now it's like a couple $1,000 and you're like, oh, it's making me feel uncomfortable. All right, maybe you should think about moving that into like a paper wallet or into a ledger or something of that nature. So anyhow, just wanted to mention that. And thank you for the plug on Cordal. Yeah, let's keep that up. All you guys should be doing Cordal because, man, if you want to, have your cake and eat it too, if you want the beauty of technology and all the stuff that it can unleash for you, I mean, Cordal is our escape hatch, right? They're the ones that are doing it from a decentralized perspective. I own Ethereum and I own a lot of stuff that's built off of Ethereum. They're the system, their corporate system, and they're going to do gangbusters. So from an investment standpoint, like you should own that because they're going to do phenomenally well, but they are the system. It's just being digitized into like Ethereum. So just know that, right? So make money off of them, but Cordal is, I don't like the system. I want to do something separate. Ethereum is like, I kind of still want to make money in the stock market. So this is what I want to do. Anyhow, my 2 cents. You guys may have a difference of opinion there. Whalebone, I see your hand up. Go ahead, my friend.
Hey, I just wanted to say that there's always there is the science, the computer science aspect of all the cryptos. And, if you get the sense that you want to get into and you want to have your own node, that portal looks really cool. I'm used to old school crypto, and I've done proof of work mining, and now I do proof of stake. And really, proof of stake is what you see on the DeFi platforms. Everything is staking based upon what you're holding. You're getting paid some percentage, you're getting paid something back. My advice that I suggested was, find the coins that you're interested in. There'll be communities that can support you getting onboarded. And I wanted to say, technically speaking, you could have your own Bitcoin node. Okay, you're not going to get paid for being a node unless you invest a lot of money, but you could, from a scientific perspective, become a node. You would need to have 360 gigabytes of data for the blockchain. So it's a total waste of time, but you may just want to do that. And you may want to build on top of Bitcoin yourself. There's all these rabbit holes that you can get into, and just because you haven't even bought a coin yet doesn't mean that next year you won't be making a new project that everybody else is going to be clamoring after. There are 12-year-olds that are becoming millionaires because they paint a picture and they know how to, make an NFT, and it's free. So you really can't go wrong. And the key, whether you're doing Trezor or an old school USB, just back up, and you have to be a password master. You have to be on your back shoulders, reminding yourself while you're doing it. Are you alive, alert, awake, and enthusiastic? Do you know what you're typing right now? Is this your password? Don't mess it up. Check the caps lock key 3 times. No joke. You have to have that mastered, or you will lose everything over a missing key. And that's a catastrophe. And everybody in crypto probably has some experience of a loss of something. And the last thing I want to say is that when people, well, that's impressive. That's impressive. You know,
I'm just careful.
Yeah, you can do it. You can absolutely do it. And the passwords have gotten easier and easier as the years have gone on. The biggest thing I noticed that catches people up though is that you think you put the right password in, but you didn't realize that you had the caps lock key down, and then you confirmed it with the caps lock key down. So always just be really looking at that caps lock key. And then the real trick is once you set a password, double check it before you send the coins to it, just to confirm that your caps lock worked. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to say is as we're talking about sharing Coinbase, everybody is now working for Coinbase. We're all branch members of Coinbase, and everybody should be getting paid by Coinbase because they will give you $10 for sharing the link. So there's a big missing in the industry, and that is referral link sharing. So I humbly submit myself as your friendly neighborhood developer. And a few years back, I built a referral link sharing platform. And that is odd.bio. There's 15 different exchanges there. You can put your Coinbase referral link in there today. If there's an exchange that you want to see on there that has a referral link, I'll add it. If you want to have your coin on Oddbank, I'll add it. You know what I mean? So referral links, make sure we're getting paid. Cash App is paying $30. They're not crypto, but they're about to be $30 a head. I rest my case.
Yeah, brother. Cash App is something that I use all the time.
I think we lost Josh. Either that or he's very still, which would make sense. He's never made a mistake. This is how chill he is. Look at that. He's solid.
You did pretty good with that. That was good.
Josh is frozen, right? It's not just me. Do you guys see that?
No,
He's
yeah,
bogey
he's like,
right now. This is the thing.
Yeah, he's frozen.
Still as possible, and all of a sudden,
he was doing really good though.
yeah, yeah.
That was awesome. Really awesome. Another kind of stair step into the wallets would actually be to learn MetaMask. You could actually install, if you haven't already, install MetaMask and just give it $5 or $10. Go to DeFi Kingdoms and sign up and lose your $10 on playing that. Go play the DeFi Kingdoms, just as an example, but like, you can do that. You'll learn MetaMask. You'll learn that you can keep money inside MetaMask, which is sort of like a little tool that's connected to your browser. And I don't think that technology is going away. MetaMask is just one of many kinds of those things, by the way. I'm not trying to say it has to be MetaMask. That just happens to be the most popular one. But I get used to using that. In fact, if you ever want to do staking, like everyone's been talking about, you're pretty much going to need something like MetaMask to go stake stuff. But basically by staking, because you have your MetaMask hooked up, when I go to Olympus DAO, because I'm staked there, it shows me who I am, how much I have there, how much I've either won or lost, stuff like that. And that's built into that identity that's built into the MetaMask, which again, I think is going to be required if you want to visit a website on the Ethereum network. Johnny B's got his hand up. Go ahead, Johnny.
Thanks, James. And thanks, Josh. This was a very good CryptoDojo here. I know you're frozen. You'll hear this later. One thing I wanted to add. Oh, okay.
Oh, good, you're back. Okay.
All right. So what I wanted to say is just real quick, if you're new to this, if there's a project you like, pretty much every project has its own Telegram or Discord group, and they're very friendly in there for the most part. And you can ask questions, like Quartal has one and Pyrochain has one. Discord, Telegram, depends which one is more popular, and just ask questions there as well. Everyone is willing to help. Yeah, that's, and the other thing too, a lot of people mention, and my family too, and everything. Everyone's worried about governments clamping down on this stuff, tracking everyone's social credit system. Do I think it's going to happen? Yes, 100%. That is the path. I don't know what it'll do for the value of anything. I don't know which coins will survive, but I do know there's always going to be a way for the black market, for the freedom market, private market. There's going to be duplicates of everything that's mainstream. There's going to be on the dark web. There's even a dark fi starting to be set up. Basically a completely hidden private version of DeFi. So just some things to consider. Thanks.
Yep. And, I would also add on top of that, Johnny, and hopefully you guys heard most of what I was saying about Cash App, but that's an easy way where just get yourself a Cash App card and you can get paid in Bitcoin to just do the regular business that you're doing right now anyway, going to the grocery store and doing all other stuff. And to Johnny's point, about sort of the subculture of all these things, think about all the people that have made tons of money off of Bitcoin and Ethereum and all this other stuff. They don't want to pay taxes on it. So what are they going to do? They're going to go to these privacy coins. So I do think that there's an element to that as well, where some of these things could have some value. I think I've lost track of if there were any hands or not, but I know we're pretty much up on time here anyway. So thanks guys for being here for the Crypto Dojo. Hopefully it was useful for everyone. I know we kind of ran the range of more basic topics, more advanced stuff, but to give you a flavor of different aspects of what we talk about here and different things we can talk about in the future. So if anyone's got any parting comments, go ahead, open up and speak now or forever hold your peace.
Thank you, Melanie, for organizing. Thank you, Josh, for hosting it.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Great job.
Thanks, Mel.
Alex, I'm sorry we're out of time. Some of you guys, if you want to do what Josh said tonight and lead one of these dojo talks, please let Melanie know. She'd be loving to hear that. Yes, there will be a recording available, Hugh. Melanie will definitely get that up. And thanks for everybody for being here.
And if you're not, subscribe to Patreon or JTrue because this one was free, but they're not all going to be. I'll plug it for you, brother. All right, guys. Have a good night.
Bye, everyone. Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.